the Department of Marketing Management at UJ's second Marketing Fit Masterclass, specifically on sustainability. I'm very happy to welcome today Maude Korte. She's the Executive Head of Marketing Operations Delivery at Nedbank. I'll read you a very short CV. She's bringing us today insightful session. She's boasting over 20 years of experience in financial services. She has experience in loyalty rewards, innovation, and commercialization. And with an MBA from Wits Business School, our speaker is an out-of-the-box thinker, passionate about optimizing technology and traditional business models to enhance sales and service strategies, ensuring cost-efficient operations and market growth. Maude's experience in managing cross-functional teams and projects across diverse international markets, including Kenya, Tanzania, Namibia, Botswana, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, India, and South Africa. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Isolde Ward at the marketing department of UJ. We're very proud in our department, working hard, and very, very happy to have Maude here. I also would like to give recognition to MASA, the Marketing Association of South Africa, for helping us to put our events together, and specifically for tonight. Thank you so much, and Enrico and his team. And for everybody who's attending here who wants the CPD points, when you registered, you could have clicked to get a digital certificate. Just please provide us with a week, because we verified at our site before we're sending it out. If you think you forgot to click that you would like a certificate for CPD purposes, you can email Jay Turner, and we will, in the chat function, put her email address here. So without any further ado, I'll introduce you now to Maude if she is ready to present a screen. Hello, thank you again. We're really happy to have you here in your busy schedule. So thank you for that. Just a few house rules, please. If you can ensure that your mic is off, have your cup of coffee ready, make notes. And then there will be or should be about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes time for questions afterwards. But if we can please leave the questions for after the presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Maude.
Okay, good. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for spending cocktail hour with me. I know data is not exactly the most exciting topic for some people, but for me, I absolutely love it. And I hope I leave you with some passion for the topic as well. So I'm just going to quickly put up my screen. Okay, so as introduced, my name is Maude Korte, and I work for Nedbank in my day job. And before I get into the nuts and bolts of the presentation, I thought I would just tell you an interesting story, something that I actually read just this week about a conglomerate of cigarette companies in America. So I tell this to you not because I want you to smoke, I really don't, but because it's a proof point of how much data and marketing has always been married together, right? So very interestingly, in the 1920s, I'll have you know, what happened was the big tobacco companies realized that majority of their customers were men, and the men were obviously walking around and smoking, and they were a very good advert for the cigarettes. But women were not. And so their data showed them that women were buying cigarettes, but they were smoking it in the comfort of their home. So not to be outdone by a little thing like health or anything to that effect, what the tobacco companies did is they then started this really strong movement. And what they did is they approached some feminist or female liberalist, and they said, look, we're going to arrange a march for the liberation of women. And to show your empowerment, we're going to give you cigarettes, and we're going to call them the Torch of Freedom. And on Easter, nogal, in New York, all the freedom fighters walked down the street proudly smoking their cigarettes, and the cigarette company for at least 50 years never looked back. So if that's not a proof point that data and marketing have been married, unfortunately, even by cigarettes since 1920, then I don't know what a stronger proof point could possibly be. So tonight, we're not going to talk about cigarettes, but we are going to talk about data science and marketing and how that's evolved, albeit a lot more positively. We're going to look a little bit at how data influences customer behavior, how you can use it to uncover patterns, and even anticipate some of the trends ahead of the time. So we're going to look at how you can use data to craft personalized campaigns, improve your customer experience, and even make smarter decisions in terms of your spend. So it's a wide topic, guys. So we can talk about data science in the context of Internet of Things, business intelligence, analytics, big data, statistical analysis, and the list goes on and on and on. But tonight I decided to really just look at 10 or so models that we use on an everyday basis in marketing, or we should be using on an everyday basis in marketing to make our campaigns more successful and sustainable. So I think firstly, let's look at instances where we need data and instances where we don't. This is the only true norm for me. It's a very famous saying by W. Edwards Deming, and he said, "In God we trust, in all others must bring data." So whilst tongue-in-cheek, it's probably becoming more and more and more relevant. The good news is that data science is a common service that's available in a commercial level, but also in big companies and in teams, and as a standalone function becoming more and more viable. So those 10 models I wanted to take you through at a very high level. I'm not going to show you how to build them or how to use them, or rather I will show you how to use them and where to use them. But I just wanted you to have enough of an experience around these topics so that you can ask for the right things and then eventually show you how they fit together. And then we'll go through a practical few examples of companies that do it really, really well. So I want to leave you with the thought, right? I mean, we are largely marketers. Even myself, I'm not a data scientist. I just love data. And you don't have to be a data scientist to use data, but data you must use, right? So we're going to look at these 10 models, and you'll see that they sound sometimes very similar because they are very similar. They all function in the funnel, the marketing funnel, and they generally go hand in hand. You can use them as individual models, but if you use them in combination, they're a lot more successful. So again, partner up if you don't know how to build the models, because it's not easy, but it's not impossible to learn. And on that point, I've actually, at the end of the presentation, and we'll stand on that for a while, and it'll be made available to you if you want it. I've listed a couple of short LinkedIn self-study sort of modules that you can go through just to get the bare, or not even the bare, to get a really good understanding of data science and some of the tools and techniques that people use to do these models. You'll have to spend a little bit of time on it, but it is not impossible. So let's start with the first model, and I think majority of us will know customer segmentation. It's not really a new concept to us, and we've been using it for quite a long time. Data science plays a really crucial role in the sales funnel, and we use segmentation largely to predict customer behaviors, to look at how we retain customers and how we really sort of hone in our target audience so that we can get the most out of our campaigns. But in reality, what is really interesting for me is that a lot of people stop short with customer segmentation. We think about segmentation when we go to market with a campaign, or we think about segmentation when we put personas together. But actually, the true value of data science is when you take your business metrics and you bring that back into your segmentation model. So, for example, if you're selling a credit-related product, how do you track that audience that you've approached on paid media, as an example, through your sales funnel after they've taken up the product, that's step one. Step two would be, did they pay back their accounts on time? Were they good credit-worthy customers? Did they take out a second loan? And those additional downstream value adds, when you enrich your segment or your model with that, you become better and better at fine-tuning who your ideal customer would be. So it's almost like a continuation. It's never just a start and an end kind of process. And that's where data modeling or science becomes really handy, because it takes all of that information that I've explained and so much more, and it constantly refines the model. And a really good refined model from a segmentation perspective obviously means that you get the opportunity to really personalize these marketing strategies. And if you've got really good personalized market strategies, we know that the engagement and conversion rates really improve, and overall your effectiveness improves. So I want to spend like maybe just a few minutes on the actual funnel, right? Because customer attrition and loyalty throughout the funnel is heavily benefited from data and data analytics, whether you're doing it on Excel or you're doing it on a Power BI report or you're doing it with machine learning or AI, whichever way you're doing it, it's a good enough start. So on the previous slide, we spoke about, targeting very specific customers, very specific segments, and those could include things like demographics and behavior. And what we call at the top of the funnel, data analytics really and data science really helps you to fine-tune that, as we discussed. In the middle of the funnel, where the customer has already showed an indication that he's interested, data really helps us there to sort of analyze the behavior of the customer in our funnel. So looking at things like your past behaviors of customers, you can easily forecast then what customers are going to do, in the future. More importantly, if you understand the behavior in the middle of the funnel, you can then start building metrics in that says, here's an anomaly that I need to solve for. It helps you to have these predictive models, because the better you get at tailoring your nurturing strategies, or the strategies that helps you get through the funnel, the more customers will then come through the funnel, and which means more sales, more effective targeting, all of that. If you then look at the retention and the purchase predictions, once the customers have gone through the funnels and you've acquired your sale, you've only done part of your job, right? Because now you want to retain that customer. You want to make sure that that customer pays his premiums, or he buys additional products. And so your retention strategies become really effective. And that can be done with data modeling as well. What does a really good customer look like? How many of these good customers do I have on my books? What is the risk of my customers not buying second and third products? Do I need more clients on my book, as an example? And speaking of clients on the book, if you think about churn rates, there's models that you guys can run, or that guys can run, to forecast which customers are likely to churn. Now, churn is just a different word for leave or stop buying your products. And these forecasting models will then again help you to put retention or churn strategies in place to make sure you engage that customers a little bit more. If you know what they've purchased before and you understand their history, you can then start looking at very specialized churn strategies for those customers to make sure they stay on your books. Now, machine learning and data science algorithms are really good at this forecasting capability that we're talking about, whether it's churn rates or personalized retention strategies. By addressing these retention issues, you obviously have to not work as hard to bring as many new customers in. So here you can use things like machine learning, AI, and different models. Effectively, throughout the funnel, as you can see, every data model that you use will help you maximize your marketing effectiveness. So better engagement, we all know, actually means better conversion, better sales, and ultimately better retention. One of my favorite things I love to hate is sentiment analysis. I'm sure there's a few of you that feel the same, but sentiment analysis really comes from when people are, engaging with your digital platforms or your websites but whatever they do as digital warriors, it does significantly impact your brand perception. So it's really important that we need to have a strategy around the sentiment analysis and the sentiment that customers are putting out or potential customers are putting out. Because I, for one, and this is why I love it, the previous reason is why I hate it, honestly don't do any big ticket items. I don't book a holiday. I don't rent a car. I don't even buy a fridge or a new lipstick on Take-A-Lot if I haven't looked at what other people are saying about the product. So the ratings and the sentiment that people express is really important to me, and I use that almost as research in my buying decision. So machine learning, or a lot of these sentiment tools, actually have embedded models in it that will interpret all of these comments and feedbacks and posts and ratings and stuff. And they will give you a sentiment analysis, and they'll also give you a really good view of what people are saying about your product or your brand. Now, someone once told me, and I think it's so true, it doesn't really matter what you tell customers. It's what customers tell each other. I think it was one of my commercial leads. What customers tell each other about your brand that matters. And where I see that to be true a lot of the time is, you would in good faith put out an ad or a post or something, and doesn't matter how good that post is or how good that brand is or how good the story is that you're telling. If you open up the comments and you start scrolling down those comments, 90% it has nothing to do with your ad, but it's an opportunity for customer to have their voices heard. Can be really good, can be not so good. What we need to do as marketers is understand how to leverage the tools that we have to amplify the positive analysis or the positive sentiment and really sort of address the negative as soon as possible. And there's lots of data tools that we can use for that. So let's look a little bit now at lead targeting and scoring. Now, it might feel a lot like the same thing as segmentation, but it really isn't if you think about it from a data perspective and from a modeling perspective, right? We like to say, not all traffic is good traffic, right? So if you can imagine, if your lead indicator for marketing, your KPI, is unique visitors to your platform, or let's say your website, or your lead indicator is downloads from your app, when that thousands start coming in, you get really excited, right? Because you see all of this engagement. But the disappointment quickly sets in when you see a very high bounce rate on your websites, or you see a high uninstall rate on your app, as an example, because you didn't target the right customer. Now, that's not a bad thing if you learn from it necessarily, right? So what we then need to do is we need to fine-tune those targeting parameters. And we also need to look at a scoring methodology and a machine learned scoring methodology or some sort of model that will help us identify high quality leads. Now, if you imagine, for example, if you asked for a lead form, right? If you have a lead form and you ask customers to share information with you. In fact, I've just thought of a good example. If you've ever tried to sell something on like Meta or Facebook marketplace, as an example, you'll put out an offer, and almost instantly people will start saying, is it available? Is it available? Is it available? Is it available? Now, you might get thousands of those, despite you putting up a little ad to say it's been sold, or you use the little AI tool. People will continue to ask you for that. Now, if you've got a competition or you're collecting some sort of information from customers, you might also get a really high response rate. And you wouldn't be able to treat all of those leads equally, unless you've got some sort of insight in terms of what makes your prospect a high potential customer or a high potential lead. And there's data models that you can use that will analyze the customer's data based on what you know about them or what they've given you to rank your prospects so that you can work through them. The other thing that's really interesting about sort of lead targeting and scoring and the concept of data management around that is predictive analytics, but specifically on forecasted leads conversion. So, I mean, that sounds very big, but effectively what it means is, you know, historically on your platforms or on your channels, what your historical rates were for each product, for each service, for each channel, in some instances, even for each piece of collateral. So you can imagine the complexity if you're selling 5, 10, 12, 200 products, and you're selling them on as many channels and with as many audiences. So it becomes quite tricky to know whether you will have enough leads or enough interest in your sales funnel to actually reach your target. So there are several models here where you can look at the historic stuff, see how many leads have come in, see what the conversion rate is for customers that you've pre-qualified, and then you can make a forecast, right? Do I have enough in my pipeline or don't I have enough in my pipeline? And if you have enough in your pipeline or you've reached sort of your maximum operating capacity, you can declutch those campaigns because you don't want to waste sales. Or you can increase them if you see you short, or if you're selling the wrong product, or if the leads are not right. So this one is one of my personal favorites. I really enjoy it. We've been doing it at Nedbank for quite a while. So it's really quite exhilarating if you can start directing traffic to specific products and you have an idea of what's going to happen when that customer lands on your platform. So if you've got broad segmentation in the beginning, based, for example, on demographics, age, income criteria, whatever that might be, and you start looking for your audiences on different platforms with your initial broad audience or segmentation, what this lead targeting then does is it allows you in the first block to segment people so that deeper down the funnel, you can start doing tailor marketing strategies. So for customers that have expressed an interest, for example, in a particular product, but they never checked it out, maybe it wasn't the right product for them. So you need to re-engage their customers to try and understand what their actual preferences are. But over time, you'll be able to see what those complementary products are and what the strategies should be for each of those products as you go through the funnel. And then lastly, okay, I can't have too many favorites, but this is also a favorite, optimizing your marketing efforts as it relates to your different channels and tactics. So we are spoiled for choice as marketers today, particularly in the digital space, where we have a huge amount of channels that we can choose from, whether you choose social or digital or direct or affiliation or whatever it is that you go with. And you've got very specific tactics that you can deploy to each of these channels. So whether you decide to sell on LinkedIn or you decide to create awareness on Insta, it doesn't really matter. What this channel optimization does is you can build a model that says, okay, for awareness or consideration or whatever it is that you're trying to drive purchase, on which of my historical channels for this particular product did I get the best return on investment? And you can slice it and dice it to the granular level where it then informs your future strategies, right? So if you know that you're selling product A, historically you get a much better return for this product on particular channels, in particular stages with particular audiences. And it really takes the guesswork out of your strategic planning or even your media schedule. It just takes out the kind of head scratch when you're trying to plan your campaign. So really exciting piece of work that you can focus on. Now, this one is a little bit more tricky. That's why I call a friend, right? Because pricing strategies are, at least from my experience, is really complicated because of all the very many variables that needs to go into your pricing strategy. But it is critically important that you have a pricing strategy, and more important, that it's flexible and it's responsive. So if way back in the day when we did sort of competitor analysis, it wasn't so bad to sort of go onto Google, depending on how many competitors you had, and then try and figure out like what is their, their pricing strategy on the products, what is their sort of application processes, where can you apply? You could do quite a bit. But these days, customers are already doing that. They are doing research before they buy because they've got the same access as us. So now it becomes really important to kind of stay ahead of the pack, right? You must know more than your customers know about your particular product and product strategy, and your competitor strategies. So data science for intelligent pricing is out of this world. It's the coolest thing, since sliced bread, because it takes multiple factors. It allocates sort of weighting to it in terms of like customer preferences, purchase histories, market trends, economic conditions, and a whole bunch of other things. And then it looks at how to establish a fair pricing model. And then over time, of course, you can fine tune that pricing model depending on what happens with all of your variables. There's some really cool professional solutions out there as well that will do this fluctuation monitoring. So it like constantly scans the world to see what's happening and how that might impact your price point. And they do that by collecting masses of data with AI around websites and all kinds of other things. But what's the best part about this is you almost become proactive, right? To the point where you can start picking up trends in people's pricing strategies, and you can preempt what they're going, or at least AI can preempt what they are doing, and you can get ahead of that curveball. So not something, admittingly, that I know a heck of a lot about, but it's definitely an interest of mine and something that I'm trying to understand a bit better. What I do understand is the benefits of having a really responsive pricing strategy. And I'll give you a quick example. I mean, obviously, it's rhetorical because of where we are. But if my favorite brand of soap goes up with 2 cents, I'm not going to change my brand of soap because I still find value in it. Like there's a high customer satisfaction in this valuable soap of mine that I really, really enjoy. But to the supplier of the soap, 2 cents per soap makes a significant difference. So what pricing strategies and the models do is they constantly balance between how much more value or how much more can we charge, or what is a fair price for the product versus the customer satisfaction. So what is that tension point in terms of the elasticity of your product? And it's really, really quite fascinating stuff if you are that way inclined. Like me, I need help and I'm not shy to ask for it. So channel optimization is slightly different. Here we're talking about understanding the elements, firstly, that affect the effectiveness of the channel that you choose. So things like content, audiences, strategies, even stuff like copy and assets and images, and the functionality of the channel itself, the latency, the loading speed, all kinds of things influence the experience that the customer has on a channel, right? So if you imagine you selling handbags on a website, if customers are not having a really good experience on that website, the bounce rate will be high, and it's really important that you understand how to optimize that. So you understand your content performance, your site performance, and constantly be or have some sort of data set that will alert you to any sort of negative effects that's on the site. What it also can do is it can help you with personalized content. So there's some really cool tech out there that will drive personalization on platforms. It would recognize customers when they land. Some of the tech that comes to mind is sort of AppsFlyer or Adobe. And it will actually start tailoring the content on your platform based on the audiences that you put onto the platform. So what the data pieces does is it replicates these successful elements. So you can imagine you might put out, let's say you put out on a weekly basis 6 pieces of content. Let's just make up that number. And you've got different audiences that engage with that content. They come from different places. They fall into different buckets in terms of their segmentation. They might engage with it at different times of the day. And so over a period of time, this accumulates. And none of us really put out a single piece of content on one platform. You might put multiple versions of the content out on the platform, and each content piece might have a different call to action, or might have a different sales funnel that you're directing the customer to. So channel optimization really is about taking all of those elements that I've explained and putting it together in a model that will predict and enhance the successful pieces, and then downplay the not so successful pieces, so that you can start unpacking or uncovering trends and patterns in terms of your audience's behavior with the stuff that you put out. So really quite fun. And this all leads to sort of, again, effective marketing strategies, including content, increased audience satisfaction, and then, of course, overall business performance, because happy customers buy stuff. And I wanted to also here just spend a few minutes on AI and what AI has done for personalization just in the last couple of years or so, less than my handful. But data analysis, typically, if you use AI, has the ability to really get into your segmentation, right? It can go through to your psychographic level, it can go to demographic levels, geographical, and a whole bunch of behavioral factors. And because it's AI-driven, it really speeds up the process to the point where it's near real time. So imagine if you have near real time on-platform data about your customers or about your segments of your customers, and then you use a little bit of AI to help you create content, collateral, experiences, and you put those things together, that now becomes the norm. So people are starting to expect hyper-personalized services when they interact with your brand. This is not in the future, it's absolutely now. In fact, it's been around for quite a while, as I said. Some examples of this hyper-personalization with AI, you would recognize as things like product recommendations. So people that bought this product also bought this product. Or because you bought this product, we recommend that product, as an example. Or because you've got this skin type, we represent this cream for you, right? Or you want us to help solve for your personal vitamins, right? Tell us, what your day-to-day life is like, and we will make recommendations based on your surveys. These personalized product recommendations are fast becoming the norm when you deal with customers. Tailored email content, that's a no-brainer, right? We want tailored email content, but personalization is not just about knowing me and greeting me by my name, full name and surname, as if my birth certificate. It's about understanding what I am looking for and understanding what I'm interested in. So as a sample size of 1, I am a mom, I have a child, but he's no longer, a baby child. So I don't want to be spoken to about things that are not relevant to his age group. I want to know about university. I want to know about cars. I want to know about how to get a license. Those things are important to us at this life cycle. So if you send me things about Disney and about, other things, it's going to kind of irritate me a little bit, because I've given enough information about myself to my retailers or my e-commerce platform partners or the people that I use for them to know to offer me the right products. And then customized adverts is something that's coming in quite strongly, which is quite exciting as well. But if you think about some of the protection, like POPIA, customers' information, we are now starting to make it a norm, or we've been asked to make it a norm, maybe instructed is the better word, for customers to give you insights in terms of what they want to be advertised to or about and what they don't want to. So if I've given you, for example, if I've set my Google settings to say, these are the things I'm interested in, I'm full well aware that Google will send or direct me to these kind of offers. And I'm happy with that. I like that. But it doesn't mean that I want to see everything that Google thinks that I want. Same thing with my bank. If I've told you that I'm interested in specific things, I want you to talk to me about those specific things. And so the ability to customize what I want to be spoken to is fast becoming a realization. So all of these things, when people talk about, POPI and protection of personal information, I don't necessarily see them as a bad thing. I think with the right data tools and the right data modeling, this is actually a goldmine because we're not guessing anymore. People will tell us what they're interested in, and we just need to have the skills, the data, and the capability to hear them out and provide them what they need. And I think things like this will definitely foster brand loyalty because nothing makes us feel warm and fuzzy or more warm and fuzzy than the idea that our provider, our supplier, our bank, my shoe sales shop knows me well enough to bring me things that matter to me. So let's put these together because these are all sort of predictive analytics tool and they're all in the sales funnel. So if you think about something like customer lifetime value, really what that says is it says, what is the future value of this customer that I have on my book? And it estimates using obviously the data that it has about all of its customers, who your high value customers are. Not for ignoring the low value customers, but for getting everyone to that same high value customer benchmark or bracket. But importantly, also because these high value customers are the customers that you want to protect and nurture and look after. So your churn prediction, if the prediction says that your high value customer is at risk, you need to deploy as quickly as possible a retention strategy to make sure that that customer is engaged and that customer does not leave you. You can do that by product recommendations or any sort of recommendations about past purchases or browsing history, or just really engaging with that customer based on the things that you know about that customer. Those three things really go very nicely hand in hand, and they are very smart tools that we can use, whether it's machine learning or AI or even manual models to forecast the business outcomes of those models. There's also, which is quite exciting, Internet of Things devices like your watch and your other kinds of things that we wear on a daily basis or we use on a daily basis that will give you even richer insights in terms of that models that we build. So sales forecasting is also really important. And here the model speaks about, forecasting based on history and your customer that's currently in your base. What is the forecast that you will make? Now that's important for things like inventory management or stock planning, as such, but also really important for your planning in terms of your strategic intent of your marketing. If you see there's a shortfall, you know which products to look at. So sales forecasting becomes important from an analytics perspective, but I think that one is kind of obvious. And then campaign response modeling is probably the most exciting of the four. But you could, as we mentioned before, look at your historical campaigns per product, per channel, per audience. You can slice and dice it in any which way you want to make up for that gap that you saw in the sales forecast, or for the customer that you lost in the churn process, or because you don't have enough high value customers in your sort of immediate customer base, or if you want to do obviously product recommendations and you want to cross-sell to more of your customers. So those are like a tight little package and they work very well together. If you sort of have some or most of those in, you'll have benefits such as targeting your customers with higher potential lifetime value, not just on your existing book or base, but also in your targeting models, in your prediction models and your segmentation, and then effective distribution to the right audiences because you know who they are, and then evaluate effectiveness of your advertising campaigns, as well as supporting your cross-sell and upsell strategies. So a nice little tight package of data analytics. Oops. Here's one of the things that I also enjoy, and I think you will too as marketing, sort of market basket analysis really looks at relationships between products. So interesting story that comes to mind here in America as well. I can't remember the retailer. Let's just say it was Target. It seems like a Target thing to do. What they did was they put the Pampers baby nappies next to the beer. And for some reason, they saw this as a complementary product. Now, I would never put those two products together as complementary because it wouldn't come to mind, but they could see that in the data. So by putting the two products together, when Dad came in for Pampers, he also got beer. Or when Dad came in for beer, he also got Pampers. I'm not sure which one comes first. But that's a good example of how complementary products can be surfaced in your basket analysis. And these basket analysis gives you just a little bit of confidence around how to plan your sales. You could potentially bundle deals together, or if customer has one but not the other, it's a good cross-sell opportunity. And why using data is important is because what's intuitive to me is not intuitive to you, but what is intuitive to 1 million people or 500 people becomes a norm. It also really helps you to optimize your product offerings, your pricing strategies, and your campaigns. So instead of going out and trying to sell one, you might want to bundle those together. So ultimately, the business strategies to improve the sales will really benefit from insights that you would get in basket analysis. Okay, regression analysis is a bit more tricky to explain. I know there are some students in the audience that are currently doing regression analysis. Good luck to you. But really, in its simplest form, what it does, it studies the relationship between a dependent and an independent variable. So it helps you to make decisions if you want to look at two variables against each other. So, for example, if you want to look at optimizing your advertising budget, and your strategic pricing decisions. So your strategic pricing decision might be your independent variable because you're busy changing that. So it also helps very much with forecasting future trends for effective marketing. So if something changes in the immediate market or the immediate future, what would that look like? And it also really just helps you to make informed strategic choices because we're always balancing growth and profitability, right? Because growth obviously costs money. So if you wanted to understand variables like your price and your advertising, or you wanted to understand some variables like market trends based on historical data versus future data, or if you want to do resource allocation, or even just understanding how your campaign impacts on sales and customer behavior, so that you can refine your strategy, then regression analysis is probably the best thing to do for you. So some real life experiences. Now, none of these I think will be foreign to you, but I think just to sort of bring the two concepts home, I'd like to show you Netflix. And I did a bit of research, and there was a very nice kind of statement that they make that says Netflix doesn't just offer products to 183 million plus, because they know we share usernames, people. It also provides products in 183 million different ways. So that really resonated with me because what it really just says is they've got a huge amount of content, right? And if left to our own devices, we'd probably search for longer periods than we're actually watching movies. So what they did is they used things like A/B testing to evaluate the effectiveness of their different tools or data sources, as well as their different models that they had. But interesting, they will ask you to obviously rate the movies that you're watching, and over time it will curate for you your selection of movies. Now that by itself is impressive. But what I'm most impressed about Netflix is they give you then 4 or 5 different options, profiles that you can set. So on top of the amazing recommended for you already, it caters for my whole household. I've got a profile, my husband's got a profile, my son's got a profile, my daughter's got a profile, and then we've got a joint profile. And each one of these profiles has their own recommendation. So that's what makes it really valuable. They understand 183 million subscribers or people, but even in that, they cater for even more complexity and more options within that subscription package. So pretty cool. Spotify. What I liked about Spotify is they have the same kind of concept where they've got millions and millions of songs available. They use deep advanced data science to streamline music. But what they've done to personalize it even further is on a weekly basis, they have this discovery weekly where they will look at your music genres and your preferences, and they'll make recommendations about what's new and what's cool, what's similar. So you don't actually have to be sort of hip anymore to stay in tune with what has just been released, because they will give you a release radar as well. So they have apparently, and I'll just look at the number because I forgot, but they've got a small house full of people that they employ specifically to look at predictive analysis to understand which music they need to bring onto the platforms, what the probability is of people engaging with that music, and they even have to serve that music too. So this use case was very, very interesting as well. Google, I think we all know, and despite all of is the cookie crumbling or is the cookie not crumbling kind of messages that we get, what we do know is Google remains one of the strongest leaders in digital advertising. And they have that position because they have an army of data scientists that focus on delivering better outcomes and for marketing, for people like us that buy their spaces, or also for user satisfaction. So they do that by using predictive analytics to obviously make our campaigns more effective. They get those campaigns effective by looking at the users and maximizing what they know about that user. So for individual users, they will track and analyze your behavior to the point where if you're a frequent user, as you know, you have even predictive text. So if you use Google for something like business, often or research, it will narrate your conversations in such a way. If somebody that uses it for something a little bit more lighthearted, or health advice, we have Google Doctor as well. It will narrate your predictive text for you around that. So all of that then is really nicely wrapped up in their AdWords platform, which uses machine learning and algorithms to optimize how they deliver and target audiences for ads that they sell. So that's about that on that one. So in closing, what I wanted to say was, if you deep dive into the data science and the benefits of marketing, for me, this summarized it really nice from the Knowledge Academy. It said it will give you precision in customer targeting. Tick, we want that. It gives you swift adaptation of customer feedback. We always want that. Optimized digital advertising. Yes, please. It will help you manage your resources effectively, because now you don't need tons and tons of people watching campaigns. You can use modeling for that, double tick. And it's a lot more accurate in terms of predictive analysis than a human would be, as an example. So in conclusion, if you want to effectively understand your customer sentiment, you need a data model. If you want to effectively lead your targeting, effectively leading your targeting, you need a model. You can lead your targeting, but effectively you need a model. For pricing strategies, you completely need a model. If you align your business strategies with your customer needs, you will get better data insight, you'll boost your efficiency in delivering products, and you'll enhance your customer experiences. So here's that little list of things that I promised you towards the end. If you really have the appetite, you can work through this list. According to LearnBay, you will be very proficient by the time you get to the bottom of this very long list. That's me for tonight. I hope it was insightful and that you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Maude. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for that. We have a bit of time for questions. I see somebody's hand is up. You're welcome to ask your question.
Oh, thanks for the hearts and the claps, guys. Appreciate it.
I know it doesn't just take 2 minutes to put this presentation together. That I know. So thank you so much for the time spent. Sorry, somebody's hand was up, but it seems like its hand is down now. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes. Thank you, Rikutso.
You're on mute, Rikutso.
Rikutso, I think your mic is maybe not working.
You're welcome to put it in the chat if you're stuck.
Yeah, okay. In the meantime, I see Mr. Kumalo's hand is also up. You can ask your question, Mr. Kumalo.
Oh, they're saying the mics are muted centrally.
Okay. Jade, if you can maybe just unmute centrally, it's probably what's happening. The attendees' mics are automatically mute. Sorry.
Yes, I'll do that. Let me, who wants to go first? Timothy, I'll unmute you.
Timothy is still muted.
Okay, just try and unmute on your side again. Okay, can you type your question in the chat? Sorry, I don't think it's allowing me to even unmute you.
I have a question in the chat that I can read in the meantime. With only about 27% smartphone penetration, what are some of the advancements or research being done to improve data knowledge for bottom of the pyramid customers across the board? Understanding African language modeling and colloquial terms for better sentiment understanding. Should I read it again?
Who asked that question?
It is Nkosi, Mphu Nkosi, MTN Group.
I would love to work with you on that problem, right? There unfortunately is no short answer, but I with a team called, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's called the Brave Group. And they've made unbelievable progress in terms of language and AI. And they've got some really cool ideas. But the point I was going to land is that he said AI is a tool and it's up to us as South Africans to teach it, which I thought was such a lovely sentiment, because no one on our continent, no one that's not in our continent will understand our dialect, the things that we need to teach AI. And I think that will solve quite a bit of the problems that we have, because something like AI could quite easily translate and help people understand in an ear that they can hear, right? In terms of your 27% in the lower or the lower income group, I'm not so sure that that's correct. But since you're from MTN, I'm not going to argue with you. I have it that smartphones are heavily accessible. So people have smartphones, but they're not necessarily using them because of the cost of data. So I'm quite open to have a chat with you on LinkedIn about that. I'm happy to be educated and maybe let's have a chat. Look me up. Maude Korte.
Thank you so much. And sorry for pronouncing your surname with such an
That's okay.
Afrikaans
A lot of
accent.
people do it.
Korte, because that's how
No
we
problem.
would say it. But, I've seen another question. Let me just get it to, I know it's Dr. Rukutsa. She said, thank you for a brilliant presentation and amusing talk. I understand that data analytics and marketing analytics are growing fields. Do you see it changing or overhauling a traditional marketing information system or marketing research function in a business? Very good
I
question.
do. Yes, I do see it changing. So I feel like the worlds are kind of converging a little bit. So one of my very good friends works in direct marketing. And for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been having these conversations about how direct marketing and first-person marketing you can't really distinguish anymore between the difference. So whether you are serving an ad on a digital platform or you're serving it via more traditional sort of email or push notification, the the result is the same, right? So customers experience it in the same way. So I think for me, the big thing is we need to understand which channels are the customer's preference and make sure we show up there. And that is, I think, our biggest challenge, because historically we would have like a direct marketing strategy. We would potentially have a strategy, and they could all be in one plan, but you'll have a plan for digital and you have a plan for. And what we see now is customers have a real strong preference for what they or how they want to be talked to or contacted. And we're going to have to find a way with probably insights from our data modeling, which is the best time and place to talk to your customer. And we have to lead with that. So I do think it will change. It will be largely led by customers in terms of their preferences, and all of the laws and legislation will force us to go there. But it could be quite an exciting experience, but it will definitely require us to think about it differently.
Thank you so much, Maude. And then Timothy's hand has been up. Sorry, Timothy, we haven't selected to unmute everybody, so we're trying to figure that out of the background. But otherwise, I'll read it out. His question is, how do you account for the possible use of data science in countries with low internet penetration and limited customer online engagement, like, for example, Uganda?
I
Or
like
Uganda.
this. I like this question, Timothy, and I don't know if you are from Uganda, but what we've seen, and this is a Maude opinion, right? So don't hold Nedbank to it. I just want to say that sometimes being lost isn't a bad thing. So if you think about access to the internet, or you think about sort of mobile connectivity and stuff, sometimes because you get the capability late, you kind of leapfrog a lot of the things that other people had to go to be where they are today. So I'm trying to think of let me think of an example. So if you think about Kenya, they lacked banking infrastructure for years. In fact, they probably still don't have the best physical infrastructure from a banking perspective. But they adopted, the Vodacom payment solutions, the proxy payment, cell phone to cell phone payment, and completely jumped the kind of traditional banking into what we call now a very modern payment system. So I'm hoping in places like Uganda, where they might be at a back foot today, that the technology becomes freely available. And because we do see with open AI and open web and stuff like that, it does become more accessible, that they can leapfrog some of the constraints that other first world countries had to go through, or really developed countries had to go through to get to the point where they're at. The reality is that access to data and access to the internet absolutely should be a prerequisite for every country, particularly for young people. Now, I know that's hard. It's an easy thing to say when you have, half a bread under the arm. But without those resources, I could only see the young, more energetic and more enthusiastic, bright students having to come to a different country to study. And if the infrastructure is not there when they go back, they're not going to go back. So it's a sad reality, Timothy, and something that I hope we can actually overcome by leapfrogging certain elements in countries.
Thank you so much. I think there's time for last question. I'm sure people are hungry. I have buttered chicken waiting for me, so I'm sure there's some things for other people waiting as well. I have a question from Zama. I'm not going to try to pronounce your surname.
I know her well.
I'm going to murder it. I'm sorry. I just don't want to murder it. I will practice, I promise you, but privately, not here on this platform. He or she asked, how do we balance the need for personalization with concerns about data privacy and protection? I love it question.
Yeah, it's also a really big question, right? And so, at the risk of repeating myself, because I do think that there are, as a responsible organization, such as a bank or a financial institution, there are very specific pieces of legislation that we have to comply to that aims to protect the customer. But more often than not, when you talk to people that are in marketing or in risk or compliance or even legal, they see these rules as punitive rather than empowering. So for me, Zama, the answer lies in finding ways to make those customers feel in control. So be really transparent about what you're doing with the data, how you're protecting the data, what you will use it for, what you won't use it for, because I can't think of any reason personally, if someone is really transparent with me to say, listen, I'm going to use your data to do personalization. I'm going to use your data to analyze your spend behavior so I can better serve you. But I will never sell your data, and I won't do this and I won't do that. If we speak really simple English to people and we tell them honestly and truthfully what we're going to do with the data, and then we do it as we promised, you won't struggle to find the balance between data. It's when we start getting sneaky, when we want to try and do things that is not quite explained to the customer, that becomes a challenge. So I actually see the data protection as a massive opportunity, because if people trust my brand or me or, let's say Nedbank, and they trust us enough to give us their data and they allow us to use it, but they don't do it for, I don't know, ABC shoe store, it's an opportunity for Nedbank. So we've got to work really, really hard as any business to gain the customer's trust in terms of data and personalization. If your brand is strong and you give customer good experiences and you validate what you're using that data for, I think the balancing act will become easier.
Thank you so much.
And then I just want to say, I really hope that Kenya does do a quantum leap. I'm rooting for you guys.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who in their supper time, cocktail time, bathing children time, logging on. I really much appreciate it. It's our second in a series, so tomorrow's our last one in our sustainability series. So tomorrow, if you want to tune in, the advertisement is in the chat, so you're welcome to register. But again, thank you very, very much, Maude, for all the time, for invigorating, fantastic presentation, for all the time you've put in. Please keep in touch with us. Help us that we keep our curriculum also up to date, to incorporate all these new shifts. It's much appreciated. We need to work with industry, and the people who is listening here who are from industry, also please keep in contact with us so we can do that really well and produce future fit students. Thank you so much. And I also want to again thank Enrico from the Marketing Association for South Africa for helping us in putting this event together. It's really much appreciated, and have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.